Do you have an expensive property to rent out? Today's the episode you want to listen to. Our guest is from New York City, who deals in ultra high net worth tenants and what that looks like. Let's get started. All right, welcome to another episode of the Accidental Landlord Podcast. Today we have Mickey Lau-Chandani, and Mickey is the owner broker of a brokerage in New York City called Undivided. He also has a YouTube channel, the New Build Club, with looks like over 15,000 subscribers. So, Mickey, we're excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into your perspective. So, a lot of times, people we have on the show come from real estate markets that are less expensive than ours. It's not very often that we have someone come on the show from a real estate market that makes ours look cheap, right? So you're obviously coming from New York City. Why don't you take a minute or two to just kind of introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them a little bit about what you got going on out there?
Sure. So New York City is a beast of its own. We get people from all over the world that wants to make New York City their home, or that they want a piece of New York City. And that also includes a lot of buyers and investors that want to just have a piece of property that they can own and say that they have a place in the city. That also, the type of landlords that you get are not necessarily your run-of-the-mill mom and pop kind of investors. They are a certain type of niche, and we'll go over that in a little bit. I'll explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I think I'm excited about what we can learn from you, because we do have some luxury properties that we rent out, but in my mind, they probably don't compare to what you consider a luxury property there. But we definitely have to market them a little differently. The negotiations surrounding them renting them are usually a little different. So I'm excited. Why don't we start there? Why don't we get into that? Like, what? I guess the question would surround somewhere around, what is your typical, how do you come across rental properties in your business? Like, obviously you buy and sell real estate as well, but tell us a little bit about the rental side of it.
Sure. Yes. So New York City is made up of many types of homes. The majority of them are condominiums and co-ops. These are apartment buildings with multiple unit owners that own individual units in a building. 70% of all residential homes are rentals in New York. The majority of homes that people can go on the street and find and rent or choose to buy or rent will be rentals. So when you look at the streets in New York City and you look out in the buildings, most of them are rental buildings. There aren't a lot of homes for sale comparatively. So the type of unit mix is very particular, and each type of home has very specific nuances on what can be rented and what can be rented. So even a thing which you may not know in your market is we have co-ops. Co-ops have very strict rental policies, and in fact, many of them don't even allow renting. So you, as a local professional, you have to know. You can't just walk up to a building and be like, I want that unit now, I want to rent it. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to know all the rules of each particular building and each particular unit.
Gotcha. Let's talk about the people who own the rental property. So just as a point of reference, in our area, we don't have your traditional kind of Midwest real estate investor who's looking to cash flow $100 per door, and build, passive income and eventually retire and not have to work. That doesn't really happen in our area because the prices are so high. So what has happened is the people who own the majority of the rental properties in our area bought them 70s, 80s, maybe early 90s. They're not really purchasing multiple rental properties today. And they're usually inheriting them, or it's their primary residence, and now they have to do a job transfer, so now they're going to be a landlord. But I'm curious, if 70% of the units in New York City are rentals, who is buying them? When did the majority of them purchase them, or what does the investor look like in your area?
So I'll preface this with the fact that I work in a specific niche of the market, which is the luxury market. So I don't do the bulk of your rent stabilized or rent controlled units. I typically work on the free market units, which would also be something that would appeal to your viewers who are looking to just come, like, let's say they want to come into a new market, they want to buy a property. they would not qualify, or they probably would not find cash flowing properties with its rent control or rent stabilized. Everything else, which is free market, is the kind of market that I work in. Now, the type of uh, uh, buyers or investors that look for that are typically professional people that have high-paying jobs that are super busy, like doctors, consultants, people in finance that just want to own. They have a lot of extra cash and they want to put it in real estate. And they know that New York City is a pretty insulated market, meaning that we don't have these huge up and down markets. Miami, Vegas, they tend to have these wild swings. New York City does not. In New York City, typically, let's say you bought something for $1 million. You're not going to see those wild swings that you see in other markets. And people, a lot of the investors find that just putting the money there, parking it in New York is a safer bet than in many other places in the country. But they tend to be busy people, and they just want to have a piece of New York. They may be from anywhere around the world. They may be from Europe, from Asia, and they just want to buy something and say they have something in New York City, and then they rent it out. Now, I will say that the cap rate, which we had spoken a little bit earlier, in the rest of the country, you do get higher cap rates than you do in New York City. But people buy here because of the appreciation opportunity. The market does have these, it generally does keep going up on a long-term basis. And so people want to have that premier destination address. They want a Fifth Avenue address, so they want to be by Central Park and say, I have something here. And they rent it out. And typically the tenants that you get are also high income earners that have perfect credit, high income, they have no blemishes on their credit report or background check, and they don't want any problems in the future. So they have to pay rent on time regularly, and it's pretty straightforward in terms of having a tenant like that.
Gotcha. Give us an idea of like average numbers. Like what does a condo close to Central Park or on Fifth Avenue, your average one cost? And then what are typically you renting it out for?
Okay, so I think let's start with the on the low end. On the low end, a condo in those kind of prime areas of Manhattan, a studio, which would be the starting entry. A studio is just an open space. Let's say in your one bedroom home, it's just that living room space. Take away the bedroom. That in New York to purchase is around $1 million. If you wanted to rent that out, you're looking at around $4,000 to $5,000 per month. Okay. Your cap rate is, including taxes and HOA and management fees, you're looking at usually around a 3% cap rate in New York. So it's not anything wild or exciting like the rest of the country. But again, it's a safe bet. You get very good tenants. They pay on time. You don't have to think about it. And these units are usually there's a superintendent in the building, there's staff, there's doormen, there's handymen and porters. They'll take care of everything for you, so you don't have to worry that much about it.
So the property management side of it's probably a lot easier than like a standalone tract home in a neighborhood, because if everything's there in one spot, then managing. Does your brokerage manage for people?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. So my brokerage is called Undivided, and we have a property management portion called Undivided Care. And Undivided Care is just for condo owners. A condo typically has a management company that manages the building. However, Undivided Care just manages the unit for the unit owner. A management company for the building will take care of the hallways, the garbage, maintain the upkeep of the building, replace the roof, an elevator isn't working, they manage those things. A condo property management is just anything that's inside the walls of the home. So if the appliances don't work, we'll call vendors to come out. If we need to turn over the property, get a new tenant in, painting, cleaning, those kind of things, that's what we do. And it's a very specific type of program that only works in the market as dense as New York City, right? So for someone like your company, where you have a lot of single family homes, you're worrying about the roof, you're worrying about water damage, you're worrying about all those kind of things. Here, we don't have all those issues. We're just worried about what's happening inside the walls of the home.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a dream come true from a management perspective, for sure. Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, the motivations for buying investment real estate in New York are probably unlike anywhere else because they are looking for that like notch in their cap, like I own property in Manhattan, and type of, they can talk about it at a cocktail party or something, which is very unique because that's the opposite of like a traditional, spreadsheet loving investor who's analyzing the ROI and all the numbers, and they probably would hate a 3% cap rate. So that's different. And I would say in our area, the motivation is probably, we don't have that motivation. Like they want to have property in a particular city, more global type investment type person. But we do have different motivations for investors here as well, which is similar in some respects because, people, for the most part, if you're investing in our market, you are looking somewhere to park your money. You're not necessarily as concerned about the cash flow that it's going to generate each month.
Totally. And New York City is, it does attract people from all over the world that wants a market that they can feel comfortable with. So let's say we have a lot of clients coming in from Asia, and they typically buy trophy homes, trophy apartments. So these can be $5 million, $10 million homes, and they buy it. They probably will never come to see it, and they'll just want to put a tenant in there. They'll pay $25,000, $30,000 a month, and they just want to make sure that the apartment is there, it's well maintained. But other than that, they're never going to actually come to the city. They're never going to probably even see the home. And this is a big portion of our market.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk about the difference between rent controlled, or I forget the term you used, and rent and free market properties. So what's like the mix in the city roughly?
So the majority of homes in New York are rent stabilized and rent controlled, actually. So those are mandated by the city and state in terms of what the rental rate can be renewed at every year. It's very hard to kick out a rent stabilized, rent controlled tenant. So that's why you may see in like shows like Seinfeld or Sex and the City, these people pay like $1,000 or $800, and they live in this 4-bedroom home, and they're like, "How is this possible?" In fact, you can let's say you've been living there for X amount of time, and you're in one of those kind of properties. You can pass it on to your family members if when you move on in life, and you can just stay in your family forever. This is the reality of rent control, rent stabilized. Now, there is a purpose for this because New York City is unaffordable generally for the masses, and so these are used to help to make housing opportunities for those that can't afford the market rate rents. But at the same token, investors are disincentivized to want to buy those kind of properties because they'll never see a rate of return. And there's so many laws that protect the tenant that you have to repair things on a timely basis, or you have to do upgrades to your property on a timely basis. And so there's no expectation of money coming in, yet the properties are still very expensive. So for us, we don't touch these kind of properties because, one, that's just not our target market. But there's a lot of rules and requirements that you have to adhere to that makes it very complicated for a landlord to want to manage that kind of property.
So I would say you guys are probably a case study of rent control or rent stabilization for years, right? How long have these laws been around for on average?
I want to say like 40, 50 years now.
Okay, so a long time.
Yeah.
California is behind you guys when it comes to that. We did just pass statewide rent control right during the middle of COVID. So there are some provisions for statewide rent control, and then each legislative session they beef it up. They make it more restrictive. They add things to it. But we are not quite to the level that you're at. But the argument that we make, and most real estate investors and real estate professionals make, is that it's counterproductive. Like, you're going to put all these rules in, it's going to basically create more problems than it solves. I think New York City is probably a good example of what that looks like. How does the rent stabilization affect the value of the property versus if it was a free market? Same building, same unit, same everything. Free market versus rent stabilization. What's the difference?
It definitely has a negative impact on resale value. Very often when we're helping investors looking for multifams, we need to check what the building setup is and how many rent stabilized units are there compared to free market. It has a negative impact, and we're talking about millions of dollars impact on it. And it's just a big risk. It's a risk that if you can't access the unit and there needs to be repairs done, like let's say there's a water leak and such, these tenants have so many rights that they don't have to let you into the property. And then that water can just continue to leak down from one apartment to the next apartment to the next apartment. So it's just a very challenging type of asset to manage and try to upkeep to get the premium that you want out of it.
Are they actively trying to capture more units in the rent stabilization program? I don't know how it's run, but
yeah, there is a shortage of inventory in the city. And I believe I read somewhere that there was some kind of something going on with the government that they're talking about expanding that into free market units also and trying to put caps on it on the amount that you can increase rents and such. It hasn't passed. There is talk about this, but that's also going to have a negative impact, right? You as an investor, if I'm going to invest in a free market, mid-class market that I can get a 10, 12% cap rate versus an expensive market like New York, and then on top of that, I have restrictions on how much I can increase the rent every year, I may choose to put my money elsewhere. The thing is that for a local New York City market, if there's a shortage of housing, you want to incentivize the investors to go and buy and build and expand more housing. But if you disincentivize them by having these caps, they're going to take their money and put it to other markets.
Yeah, and they do, and that actively is happening. That's why, I mean, California has affordable housing issues as well, and the politicians always get upset, like, well, why aren't they building more affordable housing? It's because they're making it so difficult and so expensive that they're going to other states where it's a lot easier.
Today is there's Super Tuesday at the time of this recording, and your governor is trying to incentivize to pass a bill to have a proposition to try to bring more money to build more housing, but there's so much red tape in your local market. It's tough.
Yeah, they can't get out of their own way. And I don't necessarily want to go down a political rabbit hole on this podcast, but it's good to illustrate the long-term effects of rent control and price manipulation. And my personal opinion is it's negative. It's not good. Like, if we want to incentivize people to build more houses, let's make it easier, because ultimately the free market will equalize and serve the people it needs to serve. But the more control we try to put on it, just the more we screw it up, which has been proven over and over again. Like, almost all the economists agree that rent control is bad, which is maybe one of the only things they agree on. But okay, let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about and I don't, you might not have a good point of reference because it sounds like the majority of your business is in that ultra luxury market, but what is the difference? And we have some of this in ours. So we have some entry level homes that, rent out for $3,000-$4,000 a month. And then we have some higher end homes that are in the 10 plus range for rent. And those are two different scenarios for us. Like, it's a different negotiation. It's sometimes different the way we market and advertise it. It's a different relationship that we have with the tenants. Can you speak to that? Because you obviously are dealing with high net worth people who are paying a lot of money in rent, arguably most than the rest of the country's mortgage payments. What have you found helps you succeed when you're in those environments? Like, what are some nuances in that world when it comes to renting and negotiating and dealing with tenants?
Okay, so I have experience because I'm also an investor myself, and I invest in other states also, and I work with other property managers and other brokers. And what I realize is that in New York, unlike other markets, we have to have a very high level of customer service. We have to be very on point. Our customers don't take any mistakes lightly. They expect it to be perfect every time. So we had to hold their hand through the entire process. The other thing is that they were very busy people. Our landlords are busy. They're executives, they're millionaires, billionaires, they're doctors and surgery, and they were doing very important things. So they don't have time to even really think about what what they need to do to get the deal moving forward. So we have to literally pull them to get them through the process to get to the end goal. So many times the clients themselves get in the way of getting the deal done quickly. Unlike in other markets, the agent does everything, just sends you a PDF and you just sign a bunch of stuff and you're done. Here, there's a lot of hand holding because there's a lot of different moving parts. We have to coordinate with the building management. There are we got to get certificate of insurance for the movers and the elevator booking. There's a lot of different nuances that are specific to New York City that doesn't exist in other markets.
Do you find that if you put in the work up front and you get the deal done and you hold their hands and you give this high level of service that they're kind of on autopilot once that's all done and they're living there, or do you find that they're demanding once they're there as well?
Well, so I'm sure that you also have an online portal. You can set up tickets. Your tenants can go in and set up tickets and any issues. We have everything automated, and we use the best CRM platforms and rental platforms out there. But it is a very customer service centric operation, because our not only our clients who are the landlords, but even the tenants are these high net worth individuals. They also are very demanding, and so everybody expects a higher level of attention to anything. So if let's say there's a ticket for a dishwasher that needs to be repaired, they expect the turnaround to be 24 hours. They're not going to wait for you to respond. They want the response immediately. They want the person already coordinated and arranged to be coming in, and that thing has to be repaired right away. They will not wait around for things to happen. So everything happens quickly, and it has to be a high touch point with everybody.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with what you're saying. So in our business, what we find is that since they're financially more sophisticated for the most part. They have attorneys, they have accountants, they have all the professionals that essentially serve them because that's what they need. They don't want to mess with, they're not going to want to get into a fight with you over something, a leaky faucet or whatever. It's literally a waste of their time because the value of their time is so much more than whatever it takes to coordinate something along those lines, that they just need to be handled a little bit different. And which is why I think it's important for management companies to specialize. Like, you're a perfect example. You only deal with these people. You can get really good at dealing with high net worth renters and all of the demands that go along with them. If you're a property management company or a landlord and you have, multiple houses, it's really hard for you to specialize. Like, okay, I have a really nice house and then I have an average house over here. That's going to be difficult for you to do. And I think it's important for our listeners to understand that if you have a luxury product, which, there's plenty of really expensive houses in our area, it's not the same as if you're renting out the 3-bedroom, 2-bath tract house in the middle of, suburbia. It's different and you have to treat it differently. And as a result, you're going to collect double, triple, quadruple the rent you would if you had a regular tract house in suburban anywhere. So I think it's important because some investors, some landlords get in this mindset that, it's my house, I'm the landlord, what I say goes. And that just doesn't fly when you have a sophisticated renter. They know.
Absolutely.
They know how it works, and they're not afraid to do something about it, right? Especially if they have attorneys on retainer all the time.
I don't know about your kind of tenants, but very often our tenants will review the lease in its entirety, and they will redline things that they don't agree with, even though it's a standard lease that's provided by the city. So they're all sophisticated people. They know their rights, and they want everything to be that works for them. So there is a lot more hand holding that goes to with every single lead that we work with.
Yeah. What's the market like currently? Are you guys doing concessions to get these deals done, or is there a shortage of available property? What does that look like?
So I'm sure, just like where you are and the rest of the country, there's been a shortage of supply since the pandemic, and rents are at an all-time high. And then the inventory there's been a tight crunch in inventory, but we're starting to see a little bit of a easing overall. So rents have kind of stabilized now. I'm not seeing them going up, but however, in New York City, we're a cyclical market. Winter, it's slow. Summer and spring, it's busy. So we're just about to start into the spring season. So we just have to wait and see what happens. In terms of concessions, New York landlords offer all kinds of crazy concessions to get people in. Anything from free rent to paying for movers to move your apartment. Your tenants are busy people. They don't want to deal with moving. So an incentive is the cost of doing that move is actually not that much because it's just moving an apartment to another apartment. You're not moving a 2,000 square foot single family home into another single family home. It's much more simpler. So these kind of incentives really make sense. The most interesting incentive I just saw in a luxury rental building in Brooklyn is that they are offering a 1 week summer camp for kids if you rent in their home. Why? Because these people are busy, and it's an opportunity to send the kids away for a week so that you can just focus on your own time. It was a very interesting thing. Do I think it really makes sense? And it's just 1 week. Is it enough to incentivize them? I don't know, but that is something that I just recently saw.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're not seeing anything quite out of the box like that, but we're definitely seeing very similar things. It's softened a bit. It's not 2021 when you could put any price tag you wanted on anything and somebody would pay it. And that sometimes takes some getting used to for our investors. Is these markets change, and sometimes it's in your favor, and sometimes it's not. I was just curious what that looks like.
Let me tell you about a new trend that's happening locally, and I don't know if I think it's only in New York City right now. There is a new trend for super luxury furnished homes, and these are short-term rentals, which I'm talking about 3 to 6 month rentals, and they're fully furnished. They may be 2,000 square foot single floor rentals. New builds, and they go for $100,000 per month, full service, which means that they will have cleaning service. If you need to call for any concierge services, they'll take care of it. It's basically you bring your suitcase in, don't have to do anything, they'll take care of everything for you. And this is a new trend that just started in New York City and it's doing well. And now a few new projects are coming to market soon.
What is the traditional short-term, like, under 30 days market look like in New York City? I know I was recently there, and I didn't really see much of anything.
It does not really exist. So the hotel lobbyists have a lot of power and sway to the city and state because it's a big tax revenue generator for the city and state. So they have been able to lobby to basically make Airbnb almost non-existent in the city. This actually happened in 2023. They passed a new ordinance. And you have to get a license, like any other places in the country. But to get this license is very difficult, and they're only giving out a certain number of licenses out. And so for your average Airbnb host, you cannot no longer do less than 30 days. There are some rules, like if you stay in a room in the house and you rent it for a certain amount of time, you can. But for the most part, short-term rentals don't exist anymore.
Which is probably why you guys are spearheading the ultra luxury over 30 days, everything included for an exorbitant price. Is probably, I don't know, that would have existed if you had a bunch of Airbnbs running around. So true.
And I mean, it really appeals to your celebrities, your sports stars coming here to play. They got a contract for a couple of months. They come in here, they enjoy the city, and then they're gone. And it also appeals to a lot of execs and high net worth people that just want to come and enjoy New York City in the summer, and then they want to leave right after. So there is a very finite market for it, but it does exist.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk. You mentioned that you yourself are also an investor. So I always am interested in your perspective because you deal with investors in your professional brokerage, and then you also invest yourself. And just in interest of full disclosure, I do the same thing. So I own out-of-state properties as well as state stuff closer to home. But what's your motivation for that? Why do you do that?
I mean, look, we are real estate people, right? We live in real estate all day long. When you're in it, opportunities come to you, and or you really are educated deep into the real estate subject. So it's a very natural transition from being a broker and then becoming an investor. And I invest for many different reasons. One is for cap rate, but also, I have a short-term Airbnb property upstate New York also that we have. So like we dabble in it also. It's just a very natural transition.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I recommend it to everybody. Really, I mean, it's very few people that I don't think shouldn't invest in real estate. But when it comes from you basically running a management company in addition to your brokerage or as a part of your brokerage, what is your experience? And I'm assuming you have third-party managers manage your out-of-state stuff. You're not doing that on your own.
Yes, I do not manage it.
Okay, so what does that dynamic look like? How hard is it for you to go from an extreme high level of service that you provide to your tenants and your investors to what is in general out there for, we'll call it regular property management? What is that frustrating for you? What's that look like for you?
I have to say, for the most part, I'm actually more satisfied than dissatisfied. I think in the beginning I had very high expectations, and I would put my management companies on notice and say that this needs to be done, that needs to be done. And over time, they've understood my needs, and they've changed course to make sure that they're accommodating me. So I've been quite blessed with that. But I can say that I do often come across poor management companies, and I think that, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's more poorly managed management companies than there are good, and we have to fight with them daily to get the most simplest things done. And it is it's a process. We just have to deal with it to get it to get what our clients want at the end of the day.
Yeah, this is something I'm intimately familiar with and passionate about. See, because I don't come from a real estate background, like buying and selling real estate. I own rental properties. I was an investor, and I ultimately wasn't happy with my options for property management because, frankly, it's not a very complicated transaction. You have a house, someone's going to rent from you. You fix something when it's broken. You treat them well. Like it's really simple. It's not a complex thing. But there's so many bad management companies out there. The majority of them, I would completely agree with you. The majority of them are bad. And I have fired my share of management companies, but it's what spurred me to get into the management business. And I definitely learned a lot. Like there were some things that I didn't maybe understand when I was just an investor, but in the end, when all is said and done, I still believe it's a relatively simple transaction and it shouldn't be that difficult to do it at a high level. And I think one of the reasons that we've had as much success as we had is because we still try to do our best to do that, right? Is just do the basics well, answer the phone, respond to an email, fix something when it's broken. It's not hard. Yeah. So
I have for many, many years been trying to understand why our property managers so bad. And this is just my own thought. I don't know for a fact, but I think it's just that the people that they assign to work on your account are so poorly paid, and all they deal with is problems all day long, that they don't have an incentive to want to respond in a timely manner or to enjoy their job, and so they tend to just not bother, or they take it out on you. And I think that's also why there's so much turnover in property management, is because there's just a very low bar to entry, and frankly, I don't think they get paid a lot.
So I'll second that, and I have a kind of a notch higher reason why I think it's the way it is, and this is from inside knowledge and being an investor in all of the things and the industry groups I belong to, is the business model is flawed. There's not a lot of businesses where if you want to come be my customer, you have to give me all the money first. I control the money, and I'll decide when I can give. When I give you the money back, right? Like, you hire any other service. A plumber comes to your house to replace a faucet. If he doesn't replace the faucet or he puts the wrong faucet in, you're not going to pay him. That's not how property management works. I take control of your financial future in regards to the rental property. I collect the rent. I pay myself first, for sure. And then I'll pay all the vendors and anybody else. I may or may not do QA, QI on the work they've done. And whatever's left over, I'll give to you. And I have 1,000 clients. So if you're unhappy, I don't really care because there's 999 more behind you and I control all the money. So I'll see you later. If you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. And guess what? I know all the other companies are bad too. So there's just, it breeds apathy. And unless you have a really strong leader who has like a strong moral compass and believes in the core values and all of the things, it's so easy for the entry-level employee, which I agree with you, they're not paid very well, there's high turnover, and they just get beat up all day long by people who are unhappy. It makes sense, which I advocate for. Like, I don't know that I don't have the solution, but if we just flipped the way we were paid on its head, it would solve a lot of the problems. But
yeah, for me and my ethos for my organization is that we want to have great clients, great products, and great people. So it's very important that we build a culture and we make sure that we support our staff, that they are enjoying their work, we're addressing any needs that they need. And then that in itself influences and gets passed on to the client's experience. And we see that very often. And that's why it's, for me and how I believe how I run my organization, is that I want to take care of my people also, because I know that will translate to better and happier clients.
Yeah, for sure. The other, and we can move past this, but this is definitely something I care about. The other problem with property management is it's usually an afterthought, meaning they started buying and selling real estate as a salesperson or a broker, and they were asked enough times by their clients, hey, will you manage this? Will you manage this? Eventually they said yes enough times, and now they have this portfolio of management clients. Well, they don't really want them. What they want to do is buy and sell houses and collect commissions, but they think they're doing this just to keep their clients happy and, protect their future commissions. That's the majority of people who do property management, and that's horrible because property management and buying and selling real estate are two totally different businesses. And if you want to do them both well, that takes a special individual to be able to do that.
Yeah, I have come across agents that are single agents that their full-time job is buying and selling and leasing homes, and then they keep these property management properties on to service them. First of all, they don't make a lot from these property management stuff, and then if things go wrong, they're basically spending all their time trying to figure out and fix these issues that they're not even happy about doing. So it doesn't benefit them. It doesn't benefit the landlord. So why are they doing it in the first place? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree completely. Well, this has been a great conversation. I was interested in having it just because of the stark contrast between New York City and Southern California real estate. In the end, it's way more similar than it is different. Obviously, the prices and the elevations of the buildings are different, but a lot of the same principles apply. But I think sounds like you're running a great shop out there, and you definitely got a lot of knowledge, and I appreciate you coming on to share with our listeners.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the time.
Yeah. Any last minute things you want to make sure we hit on? I definitely want to know how our listeners can follow you. And I know you got a YouTube channel. So what's the best way for them to keep track of what you're doing?
So again, the name of my brokerage is Undivided. You can find us at undividedre.com. We handle the gamut of luxury sales, leasing, and also property management. Our property management portion is called Undivided Care. And you can also find me on YouTube on my channel at New Build Club. We specialize in new construction, new build homes, and we talk about everything to do with the local New York City market and as it is compared to new builds.
Awesome. Well, we will make sure we link everything in the show notes. And again, thank you for coming on. Much appreciated.
Peter, nice meeting you. Thank you so much.
That was a great episode. A little outside of our norm. I wanted to bring Mickey on the podcast, though, because we live in a really expensive area. There are people who live in even more expensive areas. And some of the things that come along with really expensive properties are different than your cookie cutter 3-bedroom, 2-bath in the middle of Oxnard. And I think it's important for attention to be paid to that on how to deal with tenants when you have an ultra expensive rental, how to make them happy, things that they expect, and how that affects your bottom line. And it was just interesting to have this conversation. Thank you for tuning in. As always, if you like the show, please share it. If you feel inclined to leave us a review, we'd really appreciate that.